Hello, students. It's been a great 7 weeks so far, and we're wrapping up the class this week. And I'm going to cover the 3 projects you really need to focus on. And of course, there's some discussion and reading questions, and they're all just like everything else that you've been encountering through the weeks. They're kind of connected to each other. So let's look at the essay Q&A. You've got a draft on here that you had to turn in by midnight Saturday. And Tuesday night is your night to go ahead and respond. Now read the responding instructions carefully and things to do and things to avoid. Okay, your response should be thoughtful, but it should be focused on what your classmate asked about. Your classmate was asking you for suggestions, actually, so try to give those questions a lot of consideration as you get into offering what advice you can. Okay, and of course the big show is due this coming Saturday at the end of this week. Be sure to go all the way through and carefully and thoughtfully reread the assignment. Since there is kind of a long to-do list here, you don't want to miss anything. Now, reading questions from last week are kind of embedded here. This is something new, as I mentioned when I introduced the assignment, that you will have a role in the solution in some way, which you'll need to tell us about. And a skeptical reader part, you'll remember last week's discussion. Okay, keep that in mind. MLA format, a little more specific this time. And the appendix page, photo chart example. I'm going to get to that in a minute. I'm going to go back to something else that's due earlier in the week. Besides your response to a classmate's draft on essay Q&A, you also have your hypothesis. Remember your focusing question on your deeper look essay? Think about converting that into a statement. That's the easiest way to wrap your head around this thing. And of course, you read about what a hypothesis is. You watched the video that I had and still have up here on the modules page. But here on the assignments page, let's just go through it bit by bit. It's just 2 paragraphs, although you want to be sure you cover everything. And that first paragraph is going to just summarize 3 to 5 sentences what one or more of your sources you read about in your overview for discussion on a wicked problem, what they say about the root causes and potential solutions, because now you're focusing on solutions, so you can talk about them a little bit. And then keep that in mind. And his advice. And then as you wrap up that first paragraph, what Chevalier might have advised in potential solutions in regard to what your sources mentioned. Not much. You can do that in a sentence. Now, as you get into the second paragraph, here's where you're going to actually combine partial solutions if you have some you want to combine. And here's that new wrinkle that I mentioned just a minute ago on the main assignment, what active role you can play. in making your solution a reality. And then as you end, here's where you jump up to that hypothesis template. And this will be the end of your second paragraph on this 2-paragraph assignment. And I gave you a little template here. So let's say the problem you're working on was students who have a hard time choosing a major. Well, that's great, but it's got to be something you had direct experience with, which you would have discussed in your deeper look and your statement on a wicked problem and your overview, of course, but also true for many students who have trouble. So this is my example. I don't think anyone's writing about choosing. Well, I think one person in class is writing about a choice between 2 programs, but nothing about someone who has just not yet chosen a major at all. So I'm using this as an example. So you would put that here, and then the solution you would type in here, and it could be, your solution you type in here. There we go. And you're all set. So, things to avoid. Remember about confirmation bias? We talked about those the week before last. And you're going to submit it right here, kind of like doing the reading questions. Once you click on the assignment, it'll open up and you can type in a text box. Okay? So that's the other item due Tuesday besides your response to a classmate's draft on essay Q&A. Now, you've got some reading to do this week, and that's the focus of both the discussion and the reading questions. It's Chevalier's, it's just the part of chapter 7 you haven't read yet. And I did leave out some middle bits from the chapter when I assigned that first part last week. He gives some really good advice on using visual support. Things to do, things not to do. So give it a careful read for your discussion postings this week and your quiz on the reading in this chapter. But let me go over to Google here, and let's say, what was that example I came up with? Choosing a college major is, and nobody picked this one, so that's why I'm using it. So don't suddenly change your topic, because you can't anyway. It's got to be based on your wicked problem statement. But you just type your problem in here. There it is. Now, stop. Don't start reading through all of these results of your Google search. Instead, move over here to images. Pretty slick, huh? And then look for something that really illustrates what you're talking about in the problem, its root causes or the solution, because you're going to borrow one of these, and of course you're going to give credit to the source and cite the source on your works cited page. Let's see what looks good as far as supporting what you're saying. Okay, so that's the name of that tune, and you will see it on both the discussion. In fact, in the discussion, I walk you right through what we just did together. See? Yeah, go to the Images tab. Okay? Have a great week. It's been great reading your thinking and your writing. I've been impressed with your work in a lot of different ways. So have a great week.